On the 1st of January in 2007, two brothers agreed to stop all textual communication for 1 year, instead communicating via videos on their shared YouTube channel. Almost 2 decades on, they are some of the most beloved and respected figures in the YouTube community, founding the largest online video convention and authoring one of the best-selling books of all time. Welcome to Rewind Time. This episode, Vlogbrothers.
Yeah, it's rewind time.
Welcome to episode 13 of Rewind Time, a YouTube history podcast hosted by YouTuber Lucy Livin.
Hello.
And myself, Max, someone who has not seen any YouTube really at all. We are going to be talking about the Vlogbrothers this week. Lucy, tell me about what you knew of the Vlogbrothers prior to this week's episode.
Well, while I wasn't an avid watcher of the Vlogbrothers, which actually, can we just check, is it the Vlogbrothers or is it Vlogbrothers? Because the channel's just called Vlogbrothers, but I feel like you can't just call them Vlogbrothers.
Honestly,
like, it's the
I
Vlogbrothers.
keep getting confused with the El Dude brothers from Peep Show.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it is just Vlogbrothers. Yeah.
But I think when you're referring to them, it's the Vlogbrothers, right? As a collective.
Or you'll have
tough.
to ask the real fans
Anyway,
that one.
The Vlogbrothers comprised of Hank and John Green. How familiar was I? I was not a avid watcher of their channel. I did watch videos from time to time, but I was actually more familiar with them on another social platform, which isn't really helpful for this podcast, which was Tumblr. And also the great medium of literature, because when I was in high school, read pretty much all of John Green's books. So this is the same John Green who wrote The Fault in Our Stars, most famously.
Yep.
Banned book, Looking for Alaska. And Will Grayson, Paper Towns, was 1/3 of Let It Snow.
I was not a big Tumblr user, but from what I imagine, it was sort of like you're scrolling and it's like hardcore pornography, John Green vlog with notes, right?
No, it wouldn't be a vlog.
So, text post?
It would be, okay, so the most common thing that would happen on Tumblr, and I apologize to listeners, if anyone new coming in, they're like, isn't this a YouTube history podcast? It is. But the most common way that John Green specifically would pop up on Tumblr, his URL or his username was fishing boat proceeds. And basically it would be when something became really popular on Tumblr and it was kind of like a meme to be like, tag John Green.
Yep.
Or like, John Green needs to see this. And then he would eventually...
Like about anything or stuff specific to the fandom of John Green?
Kind of about anything.
Yeah, he is an internet.
He gives
addicted to internet.
He is a fellow. I would like to think that he is similar to me in that he is a fellow chronically online king/queen. And I say that because I'm obviously quite online, which is why probably this podcast exists. In fact, that's definitely why this podcast exists. So I was quite familiar with mostly John Green, but both of them. I was very aware of them, but I wasn't a big watcher of their channel, to sum it up. How about you?
Yeah, so I did not know anything about the channel Vlogbrothers, and you asked me who I thought it would be,
yes.
And I gave the most nondescript, like based on the series we've watched so far, answer where I was like, it's going to be 2 American teenagers, and they're going to vlog. So I was kind of
So you were
close.
kind of thinking of the Paul brothers.
Yeah, basically. But basically, when you started showing me the first video from Brotherhood 2.0, the line was Dear John, and I have seen now enough YouTube that I immediately was like, this is John and Hank Green.
Wow.
Because I am aware of who John Green is, because he is, and I fact-checked this, one of the greatest selling authors of all time.
That is actually so crazy.
Yeah.
So he's up there with who else? Who's he in company with?
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Okay.
The Bible.
Yeah, banger.
The Hunger Games, for another 2010s YA reference. Yeah. So Fault in Our Stars sold a lot of copies. So I knew John Green was a YA author. I knew he was vaguely like someone affiliated with the Democrats, the progressive party in US politics.
Okay.
And I knew he was a white guy. So when I saw a video of a man who looked 25 or so, doing a vlog saying Dear John, I was like, chances are this is John and Hank Green.
Deductive reasoning. Good work, Detective
and I was
Holmes.
correct. So I think this podcast, in terms of educating me on at least 2000s YouTube cultural references, like my knowledge is improving week to week.
Wow. If only there was a YouTube specific trivia competition we could enter. We could surely.
Well, no, you could.
But I think over time you'll come to help because you take away different things than I do. Like your brain latches onto different facts than I do. But anyway, early John Green, Hank Green, Vlogbrothers videos. Would you like to explain the concept of their early channel?
So Hank starts the Vlogbrothers channel, presumably because we don't see John till a fair bit later. But he starts the channel and he issues it almost like a challenge to John, where he says that we are going to go back and forth on this channel making vlogs addressed to the other person, and we can do it for a year basically. And the challenge, basically, the series is called Brotherhood 2.0. It has a very cool like intro sort of screen thing that comes in.
It's pretty swag.
Yeah,
I like it.
and Hank lays out some rules. So he's like, you have to make a video on your day. You can't make the video be longer than 4 minutes, which at the time I think YouTube 10-minute video length.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, around that.
Probably.
So 4 minutes, that's for that period of time, quite long. Now, obviously, seems incredibly short.
Yes.
And then also this rule where the two brothers, Hank and John, they cannot communicate textually. So what that means is they can't text each other or send each other emails or respond to each other's Reddit comments, which is a thing I saw happen. Anyway, so Hank makes these videos. John initially doesn't respond. He does later respond. And
I think it's like 2 or 3 videos later.
Yeah.
It's like Hank kind of is just doing it for a bit and he's like, where are you?
It's like John was like, bruh, it's like the ice bucket challenge when someone nominates you and you ignore it because you're like, well, it's just one person. Like, I'm not doing this.
Have you ever been nominated for the Ice
Yeah, I
Bucket
was
Challenge?
nominated.
Did
I
you
didn't
do
do it? No.
Wow.
Do you know who nominated me?
No.
We're not going to say his name, but he's someone we had dinner with recently.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
But did he do it?
Yeah, he did it. So he nominated me.
Huh.
He also nominated another person who we saw in America who also didn't do it, which is quite funny. So we ended the ALS challenge there, basically. We were
you
the chain
guys
that
would
broke.
be amazing in like It Follows or in like The Ring.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but anyway.
Anyway, so Brotherhood 2.0, sorry. What your initial impressions from these early videos, mid-2000s, almost Lonely Girl 15-esque vlogs to camera?
I think they're quite charming. I think they're very wholesome.
Yep.
You immediately get a sense of that these guys are quite erudite. And I think something that stuck out to both of us was we were kind of like, how old are these guys? Because they're kind of like ageless, or they have, and I say this like with deep affection, they have like a nerdiness and also like the way they talk where I'm like, I can't tell if they're just like young nerds or if they're like old. I don't know how to, you know what I mean?
I think it's more, we haven't, and I'll fact check myself here, but we hadn't actually seen anyone this old make YouTube videos at this time yet.
To clarify for everyone, they're not old.
No.
They're like 20, I think they're 27 and 30.
We're giving like the TikTok comments where it's like,
wow.
Lord looks so haggard for 28.
Yeah,
and it's
they're
like
so
someone
diabolical.
who's
And
like
it's like
14.
and it's like a normal looking woman.
Yeah.
I guess what we're trying to say is that so far when we've been covering early YouTubers, we covered like Fred, who was like a 12-year-old. We covered like early Smosh, and they were like, young
Teenagers.
Yeah, teenagers or like middle schoolers, right? So a lot of the people we've been covering so far have been
Neil
starting.
Cicierega, also a teen.
Exactly.
Ryan
starting
Higa,
their
a teen.
channel.
It's kind of only, I feel, Lonely Island and
Philly D.
No, because Philly
D also
we
started
see
when
that
he was
thing
like
where
19.
he's like in his house. Yeah.
True. So pretty much everyone we've covered up to this point were young adults.
Yeah.
Minimum. Like 18 and under.
Yeah.
That sounds so cursed. But
Jason Steele, obviously,
Who?
a bit older.
Oh,
Charlie the Unicorn.
yeah, film cam.
Yeah,
But we
but
don't
he's
see
not
him
the
on
personality.
camera.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's just weird, I think, for us to see people who are around our
Age that we are now.
presenting.
Do you want to do an
on
age
YouTube.
reveal? Age reveal.
No, I'm not doing an age reveal.
You're not doing an age reveal?
No.
Okay. It's a secret.
Yeah, no.
You guys can decide if
I'm
we
23.
look if you can decide if we look haggard or not for our age. What procedures have we had done? But yeah, it's just interesting to see non like children, I guess, making YouTube videos. And we weren't 100% sure how old they are, but again, I think they were 27 and 30, which I said.
So they proceed to do videos back and forth for the rest of the year, and they develop quite a significant community for early YouTube following this sort of stuff. They have to do punishments if they break the rules. So we watched a fair few of those. Say one of them has to eat toilet paper. There was one very unpleasant one where one of them had to drink a blended Happy Meal, I believe it was, which was kind of gross.
The one where Hank goes to Target for like 12 hours?
Yeah, Target or Kmart, like a big box
Target,
store, and he has to spend a number of hours in the store.
Sounds kind of good.
I can't believe the staff were like, I don't care. Like, let this guy film for 12 hours. I think they must be
big enough, and I think this maybe is a cultural difference. Like, we just don't have a store that large with that many different departments where people would just not.
Well, it didn't look that big.
I think it looked, well, okay. We'll never know.
And also, like, now everyone has their phones and can film in any public or semi-private space, and no one does anything. But I imagine he had a proper camera that was just sitting there.
Camcorder.
But like, if I am a minimum wage teen at, Target in 2007 and some guy's just reading a book filming himself, like, bro, I don't care. That's not my business.
True. But that's the thing. I think the Green brothers in a lot of their early videos, I've already said it, but they're very wholesome. They're very good-natured. They never really are doing anything like some other channels, which we will cover at some point, where they're doing like pranks or they're filming people without them knowing, like people in public. They, from pretty early on, they like, it seems to, from what we've seen, they always censor and like don't film people without their permission. They censor people's faces. I would say it's like respectful. It's like chaotic good vibes. Do you know what I mean? They're not doing anything disruptive to the general public, which I'm a big fan of, generally.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to do that when you are primarily making vlogs.
Yeah.
That are only 4 minutes long. Like, it kind of minimizes the scope of what you can do, I feel.
You can... Well, there are other things that you can do that are also equally harmless, but maybe induce more psychic damage. Like, you could film yourself dancing in a public store. Right?
Flashbacks. Okay, so basically we go back and forth. Eventually, we do get a John and Hank surprise video where they appear in the same video together, which I'm sure if you were a fan at that time, it will be like your Avengers Assemble moment.
A monumental occasion, yeah.
And we should discuss how they have a recurring bit where they describe John's wife as the Yeti.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't at this stage want to appear on camera. So they're basically being like, she's like a
mythical creature.
Yeah, like a skittish monster.
Yeah.
And she does eventually become, I think, more comfortable with being on camera. But it's quite cool so basically John is a semi-successful author, and he is originally from Indianapolis and is living and meets his wife, I believe, in Chicago, and they live in New York for a time. But around the time that he is starting this channel with Hank, he actually moves back to Indianapolis, where his wife gets a position as a curator at I believe the art gallery there.
Oh, cool.
It's just like, normally like when you make it as an author, it's like that's when you move to the big smoke. And he obviously now, and probably then as well, can live wherever he likes as a writer and someone who's earning quite a bit of money. But he was like, no, I'm moving back to basically my hometown, and I'm chilling with all my friends who knew me before I was famous. All my day one guys.
And supporting his wife's career.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, alpha move. Very swag. We love to see it.
And maybe the YouTube channel is a way by which he can still feel connected to, not that there's not society in Indianapolis, but he can still give input and have a public presence without living in one of these big cities.
Now, obviously, our main goal of, the episode is to talk about the YouTube channel, but I believe they have a website already. Like, there's like many of the people we've covered where they kind of already have a bit of like an online presence and an online community. Probably, as part of that is, fans of John's books, etc.
We should talk about the online community.
Yeah. The Nerdfighters.
Yes, the Nerdfighters.
Nerdfighters, and then as they just we're talking about it like it's a different language. There are a lot of like inside jokes, I guess, or not tropes, but parts of Nerdfighter. I was aware of Nerdfighters and Nerdfighteria, I believe is how they describe it.
Yeah.
Again through Tumblr, but I will say it is kind of one of those things where I felt like it was a bit of a monolith where I was like, I still don't quite understand what like Nerdfighters are. Do you feel like you have a good grasp on what being a Nerdfighter is? I believe it's like an internet community collective, and I believe and I'm going to try and quote, it's like to decrease the amount of suck.
World suck. Yeah. The thing is, Nerdfighteria is sufficient to have a very built-out Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have like a terminology section.
Yep.
They have a logo. It's like they do like a little like Spock.
Yeah.
The Spock fingers. I peacefully, and I say this with so much love and respect because I feel like they are a really nice part of the internet, and I remember that from being on Tumblr. I remember being like, as a Gen Z girly, I was like, this is a millennial thing. I don't really know what this is.
The amount of millennial energy that is transferred from John and Hank Green. They're probably, and some of the crossover, some of their friends are similar type of men. But when you see, and I certainly wouldn't partake in something like this, but when you potentially engage in media that parodies or in more serious cases mocks millennial men for being effeminate, I think that some of the behaviors of the Green brothers, they would make for an easy target of mockery because they are basically they're very cute, they're very positive,
They're very cute.
they do not exhibit a lot of the traditional signs of
they're
masculinity.
Not giving toxic energy.
They're
giving.
not, I don't even think they're giving like.
I think wholesomeness.
Base. Yeah, exactly.
They're very like, they're genuine.
Yeah.
And and it's kind of rare to see that. And I guess we'll kind of touch on that a bit more later. But I will say, not to get ahead of ourselves, I was like, obviously like they are. I would say they're like poster child, like millennial progressive men, and I think that is just what it is. And I'm sure they would probably agree with that. They're also extremely famous online figures. So, of course, like the two are one and the same. They're probably some of the most famous online progressive men that there are.
Yeah.
Who have like an online community about being like nerds.
I think that identifying as nerds is one of the core tenets of this type of culture.
It's very like mustache.
we were bullied at school for liking Star Wars,
they don't
and now
say that.
Star Wars is the most popular thing.
They never talk about being bullied.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just like, it's awesome to like nerdy things. They're like, we love science.
Yeah,
it's cute. I like it.
So when the video started, I was like, oh, this could be tough.
A tough watch for you.
Yeah, just the sincerity and the identifying as nerd stuff is it's quite a world away from sort of
where we are
the
now.
irony poisoning that everyone has that makes internet content now, and like no one can be sincere, but they definitely, spoilers, won me over throughout watching these videos, because it's like you just know it's not like a bit, it's actually not a character.
Yeah,
they are actually. And naturally, like, everyone plays up their online persona to an extent, but I do think these guys are basically completely sincere.
They are just like that, I think.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not throwing Nerdfighter hand signs.
You're not throwing the nerd gang sign.
I'm like, I can't really find anything to criticize without feeling mean about this whole ethos.
Correct. So you shouldn't be.
No, and it's like it's not cool, but something doesn't have to be cool,
To be good.
Exactly.
Yeah. I will say, and I know we're not doing an age reveal, and I don't want to out you here, but there were certain points throughout our watch of the videos where John and Hank were talking about specific like musicians that they liked or hobbies that they enjoyed or TV shows, and I didn't know what they were, but you were like, oh my gosh, this thing that they like, I like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, John Green and I
Millennial.
have a lot of shared interests.
Yeah, do you think maybe that contributed? Like you were like, he's just you.
I don't think he's just
he's
me.
not just you, but like, you know, maybe it's holding a mirror up to yourself and being like, you're just a guy who likes football. You're just a guy who likes, what's that band they had? And you
The Mountain
like,
Goats.
Yeah, I thought it was cute.
I mean, I think John Green has
I love
good
my
taste,
millennial boyfriend.
you know? I think he has good taste generally.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and
You
I'm
were like,
step
it's Kenya
aside.
Dawson. And
Yeah.
I was like, who is that?
I haven't read his books.
Yeah.
Because they're not targeted at adults. But you know, he himself, and I don't want to really. That's why I don't really want to touch on that. We're just talking about his YouTube channel. And yeah, I think that he has good taste. He recommends good stuff. He is friends with like quite cool people. Like, yeah, I think that
He's like a multimillionaire on the books he wrote. You're like, are you gonna like single white female John Green?
No, I'm not. Look, John Green, we can talk about some of his public positions because he makes a lot of content, and Hank does as well, to be fair, about politics, about social issues, and one of the recurring themes that John especially touches on is how people love to try and ban Looking for Alaska.
Yes. And did you know much about Looking for Alaska?
I have never heard of it.
Okay.
I knew about The Fault in Our Stars.
Tiffus.
Sorry?
Tiffeus?
Is that okay?
Tiffeus.
I knew that John Green was popular on Tumblr,
Yep.
and I knew Hank Green existed because of VidCon, but I didn't know about any of the other stuff he's been doing.
Okay.
And I really hadn't heard much about him in, like 10 years since Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah. I will say, to kind of also tie it back into that conversation we were having about Nerdfighters, is that they have built a community that I think, while obviously it, you know, has prominence in talking about like liking nerdy stuff and being, I guess, like pro-intellectualism, I would say, I think it does tie back into their shared values and stances, which, yes, Looking for Alaska is the target of many book bans going back to, I think, as early as 2007
I think
or 2008.
immediately after it was published, basically.
It's like,
yeah.
so, okay, Looking for Alaska came out in 2005, something like that, 2004, 2005. Vlogbrothers, Brotherhood 2.0, the early series was 2007. And then once they kind of finish the Brotherhood 2.0, well, I guess they don't finish it, but like they kind of transition it into a bit of a different.
Yeah, they remove the dates from the videos and they just go, we're
Good
going
morning,
to
John.
continue
Good morning,
doing
Hank.
this.
Yeah, the format for the channel, and till this day, so like almost 20 years on, is going back and forth with the different brothers taking turns doing the videos, and that's the format. And there's no real. The videos continue to be somewhat short, and they basically just talk about whatever they want. There's no real.
Yeah, they
like,
removed the 4-minute rule at
Yes.
some point because it's actually
enough.
funny. And I believe it's John. He says keeping the videos 4 minutes initially was a way that we were like, this is how we're going to like minimize the amount of work we have to do by not encouraging longer videos. But he's like, ironically, now, because everyone makes content much longer, it's actually it's much more work to make the 4-minute video
because you have to edit it more
and do YouTube editing, and really condense the idea. So it's actually kind of like when they made the tweets like twice as long and actually kind of reduced, in my opinion, the quality, because when you have a limit on something, you force people to be concise and like have their like message be considered, and if you just let them have more time,
But their videos are still generally pretty short. They're still like 5 to 6 to 7 minutes on average from what I see. So I don't know if I necessarily
we'll give them a pass
agree
on
with
that one.
Okay, we'll give them a pass.
Also, I should note on the rules, they do eventually agreed that they can be allowed to communicate textually.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm sure it would
After
have
the
been very
first year or
annoying.
so,
Yeah, to have to like, I need to message John about dinner, and I can't text him. I have
They're
to
allowed to
call
call
him.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. So they kind of do that after the initial. They finish the initial project of Brotherhood 2.0, but continue on with the channel. Anyway, I just had to tie that up a little bit. Gotta keep the structure to the ep. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Enough about John, because
Don't you want to talk about Looking for Alaska?
we will, but
Oh.
he, like, look, fact is, Looking for Alaska, to close it off, it gets banned. John goes, why, do we ban books? And broadly, of course, neither of us are pro banning books, right? In schools.
Crazy if I came out now being like, I actually think.
I mean,
no, yeah, I don't think.
Maybe some should be banned for quality reasons, but definitely not this one. And
No.
So basically, we're in agreement with John, and it would be quite annoying to write for a YA audience and to have your book be banned in schools, which is the primary place that young adults are.
Yeah, I mean, look, the primary reason the book seems to be banned, among like a myriad of things of, the teenagers just being teenagers, and people don't really seem to like that being depicted because people think depiction equals endorsement, even though it's like they're just being normal teenagers.
They're like, John Green is a deviant who wants to...
He wants kids to be drinking alcohol like crazy. But the primary reason is because there is a scene, like a sex scene. Auga. No. But it is shown, like, people are taking that out of context, being like, oh, like these teens are engaging in a sexual act and it's like not good and we shouldn't depict this, when specifically John Green is including that scene and then a scene directly after it to contrast and show like the meaning of emotional intimacy versus physical intimacy, and he makes a compelling point. And as someone who's read the book, and I did read it when I was a teenager, I think it's like very apparent. You don't need like heaps of media literacy to understand as like a teenager that is the point he's trying to make, and that it's ultimately can be an empty experience. So yeah, and he's still dealing with issues of it today. It's like this happened really early on, and only a few years ago he made a very similar video still talking about the Looking for Alaska book bans. So crazy work.
Obviously banning books is bad, but
I don't know where you're going
if they ban Looking for Alaska, that's more time for the kids to watch Rewind Time, another educational thing. So
silly.
Broadly, maybe
silly.
it's not so bad. Okay, John, big author, big shot. Everyone knows about John. Hank Green, sort of the Frankie Grande to John's Ariana.
Oh my gosh.
The Danny Minogue to John's Kylie.
Ooh, I don't know if that's apt.
Look, we should talk about Hank because he is someone, I think, with he's not one of the greatest selling authors of all time, naturally. So he has a smaller profile. But I do think that of the two, he is the more natural YouTuber. Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, I think, Hank is the one who kind of kicks off the Brotherhood 2.0. Obviously, I assume they discussed it beforehand. But Hank is, to me, like a natural YouTuber. And you can see the difference between their two videos. I would say John's tend to be more, if it's like the two are a comedic pair, it's like John plays the straight guy, and Hank does what's the opposite of the straight guy? Funny.
The funny man.
Yeah, the funny man.
Sure.
Hank is constantly doing goofs and gaffs and gags, which I personally really appreciate. He is really talented, I feel. Musically talented, for one.
Yes, we should talk about Accio Deadly Hallows.
Deathly Hallows.
Deathly Hallows.
Please.
Sorry,
Casual.
guys. I just don't really follow Harry Potter. We should note that the Green brothers, until somewhat recently, are very big Harry Potter fans.
It's like Nerdfighter coded to be a Harry Potter fan.
Yeah, I would argue they were fans post when it was culturally and politically distasteful to like J.K. Rowling.
No,
but
I think they.
You think they slide in? Yeah. Okay.
I think they slide in before the buzzer. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a window of like J.K. Rowling suckage, which is like yeah, between the like, hey, this billionaire's kind of giving off bad vibes to like, oh, this billionaire's like actually doing like hate campaigns. There's like a space, I feel, in between there where you could
Give him a pass. Give him a pass.
you could just be like, no, I don't like those tweets. But then now I'm like, if you're still like standing, I would be like, hey.
Yeah, look, so he does a Harry Potter themed song, and it is quite popular on YouTube at the time in the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But I made a note that it was basically straight away one of the best original pieces of music we've heard in the series.
Really?
And that Hank is both quite good because it's an acoustic guitar track. He is quite good at guitar, but I think more importantly has really good
musicality.
Well, it's like the delivery of the lyrics, so the singing, but also the lyrics themselves. Like it is a really good sort of parody song. It's quite reminiscent of the Tays on Day variety song that Colbert and Co did. And it was like, I was like, wow, this is so Mountain Goats coded, which ironic because we would later see that they get the Mountain Goats to play, it's a single guy at one of their
events.
Subscriber events. Yeah. And so you can see the influence probably at this point. So, but yeah, I think that all the songs he did, and he has released some albums. Yeah, I think they are primarily like comedy, not like spoken word comedy, but
they're
the
like
songs
for the fans.
Yeah. He's not trying to be the next Ed Sheeran,
Yeah. That'd be a crazy career pivot.
I think he's pretty good. He could have given it a go. I don't know.
Yeah. So
but yeah, and as you were saying, like besides the musicality, he is maybe a bit more adventurous in the style of content he creates, and he certainly on camera seems a lot more comfortable, I would say.
Yeah, I think he definitely hits his stride in terms of being a YouTube creator. I think of like many of the kind of vlogs we sort of went through, those early vlogs, John is kind of always at his like desk or just like filming in a room, but Hank, we get him like out and about and he's doing stuff. And I think it's pretty cute. I quite like it. I'm very endeared to Hank Green quite early on. I'm like, oh, this guy is like, and it's actually funny that you say that he's like the Frankie Grande to John's Ariana, because I think it's in the very first video on their channel where he like talks about the fact that I assume Hank is the younger brother, right? You need to check that.
We'll check it.
He gives a younger brother type energy, but he talks about the fact that everyone always is like talking to him in terms of his relation to his brother, like, you are not as tall as your brother, or like you are not as funny as your brother.
He is the second son.
Yeah,
William Henry Green II.
Let's go, William Henry Green.
That is his name.
Where's Hank? His name's Hank.
I believe when you're rich, you have 3 names, and you also have a nickname.
What?
His
name's not Hank. Anyway, crazy discovery a live discovery on the pod. This just in. His name is not. Oh, is Hank a nickname for Henry? Whatever. Not.
We're revealing our class here, and that we're not going like, why is he called Hank? But sorry, as you were saying,
swag.
Hank getting out and about there. Both of the Green brothers really get out there in a major way when they start VidCon in 2010.
Did you know before we started this, like before we started the watch, that they founded VidCon? Had you made the connection?
No. I didn't know anything about the two brothers.
Because we've talked about VidCon
this.
in previous episodes.
Yes.
Because all of our big YouTubers were obviously landmark attendees.
I knew about BronyCon.
Yeah.
And what's the Tumblr? The Tumblr.
Oh, DashCon.
DashCon. Yeah.
What do you know about DashCon?
There was a ball pit.
Oh yeah.
But that's it. I don't know anything else.
That's kind of the main. I think that's kind of the thing. There was a ball pit and not a lot else. So. I love DashCon.
Yeah, so VidCon, if you're not aware, was a conference for YouTubers where all the YouTubers in the early stages, and it continues to this day, but in the 2010 and on version that the Green brothers, they ran, it was about all of the video producers, content creators that you see online. They're all going to come to the one place in Anaheim and I imagine, network, but more importantly, make content together, right?
Yeah, it would be. So it's like interesting because I think VidCon from its initial inception to now has changed quite a bit in terms of what it is. In that it used to be, it's like an internet video convention. It was like, I think the original tagline was like online video IRL. So primarily YouTubers, and I assume people who are fans of YouTubers would go. So it's like an industry event.
But it is also, it's important to note here that fans could buy tickets to this.
Yes.
So whereas like when I'm going to the Digital Marketing Executive Conference 2025, no ordinary person is going to pay to go to that, bro, because like it's
Can you
boring.
imagine me going being like, I'm a fan of you on LinkedIn? So
Yeah,
I had to
exactly.
come.
Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of what these events are like. But
yeah.
this event, and same with like any like Comic Con or E3 RIP, because they're like about entertainment, you know, everyone loves entertainment. So there's like these are hybrid industry fan events in a different way to like very boring business conventions usually are. And there's the opportunity to make a lot of money there, which business-sided conventions are not obviously set up to do.
So the original VidCon had about 1,400 attendees, and it was in a hotel basement. And then it quite rapidly grew. Obviously, 2010, we're still kind of, I would say 2010 is like just a couple of years before, I would say like the YouTube boom. I would say the YouTube boom for our purposes, or when I think of like the initial like YouTuber phenomena, is like probably like 2012 to 2014 is kind of when it exploded. Like that's your Denphils, your Zoellas.
The Brick Crew.
The Brick Crew, yes. Oh my gosh, babe, you're learning. How exciting. I can't wait to talk about the Brick Crew. I'm so excited. The dog, you know, you don't know, but I'm so excited to talk about it. But VidCon, created by the Green Brothers, obviously, becomes a huge event. Do they have like attendance numbers? They do.
Yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you
okay,
here.
so it went from 1,400 and then in 2019, oh, hang on, you're scrolling.
It basically every year grows in attendance until it peaks in 2018.
With 75,000 people. Holy guacamole. That is huge. And they did it overseas. They used to have one in Australia. They did Australia VidCon. I don't know if they still do it anymore. But yeah. VidCon.
Guys, now owners of VidCon, Viacom.
Yeah.
If you want to invite us to the next VidCon in Australia.
International, if you would like to invite us to either VidCon Australia or potentially VidCon LA at the Anaheim Convention Center, then you can email rewindtimepod@gmail.com and we'll gladly attend and cover the event.
Anyway.
I just need to say I would have done anything to be at VidCon. I want to say it's like I would love to be at VidCon 2012 to 2014. Any of those ones. I can't wait to cover some lady VidCon stuff.
I will just say to close off VidCon, the Green Brothers sell VidCon to Viacom, as I mentioned previously. And it's now basically owned by Paramount.
Yes.
So the media company, maker of films, I think is what most people know them for. And interestingly enough, the main sponsor, which was YouTube for say like the first 10 years of its life.
Yeah.
After in the post-COVID phase, the sponsor actually TikTok became the main sponsor.
I was going to say that. It's now no longer, because originally it was online video IRL, and for the Green Brothers, they were like, well, that's YouTube. It's the YouTube community. They're one and the same. They're synonymous. But now when you think about online video, that kind of is TikTok as well. For me, it's still very much YouTube, but I so see, like, we know people who are exclusively just like TikTok creators.
Yeah, I imagine like Twitch as well through the 2010s, live streamers, because you know what is a live stream? Me at VidCon with all these famous people around.
Are you aware of that happening? Are you referencing a specific event?
No.
Oh, how good.
Okay.
I can't wait to talk about that later in
ominous.
Future episodes. But yes.
Why didn't you go to VidCon 2017 in Melbourne, Australia?
Because I don't live in Melbourne, haven't lived in Melbourne. And
you're a YouTuber.
I'm a YouTuber, but I think in 2017 I wasn't I didn't really have the...
Didn't have the numbers?
Didn't have the numbers.
Yeah.
Talking about the numbers.
Okay.
But also, VidCon is not inexpensive. So that's another thing. There used to just be like 1 or 2 kinds of ticket. And again, you won't know this yet because we will cover this probably in depth with another creator we'll talk about in a future episode, which I'm sure some people are probably thinking of who it is, listeners who are chronically YouTube online like me. But they had... it used to be like all attendees are one and the same, but now they would have like, similar to like Coachella, they'd have like an artist pass, so like a creator pass, and then the creator track. So like,
Babe, I know about this because of our attendance at South by Southwest.
Oh, ha 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 ha. Where you were my, we got the.
I am your assistant.
You're my assistant.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Team Lucy Livin.
Team Lucy Livin. Please subscribe. But now there is, so VidCon, it used to be fans and creators are all kind of in the same room together, but now it's like there's a VIP section with all the big YouTubers and Twitch streamers and TikTok stars, and then you have a track which is for creators, so aspiring creators who maybe are trying to become YouTubers and streamers, and then you have the fan kind of space, and it's almost like 2 conventions running at the same time, or 2 tracks, which is pretty similar to how a lot of conventions run, but a very different dynamic, reflective of the creator industry and how it's grown. So pretty crazy that they had that impact, and in a way they were the kind of initial butterfly flap of wings that set off a chain of events relating to other creators, which I am delighted to cover in future episodes.
Okay, and with that we move into the 2010s, and obviously we have Fault in Our Stars. The Fault in Our Stars.
Tiffeus.
Released a few years later, and it's followed also by an incredibly successful film that John Green is on set for and was involved in the production of. And it's difficult to overstate how popular this book was among YA audiences at the time. You obviously being in the prime demographic. How old were you? Roughly?
I would have been 15 or so when I read the book, and then I went and saw the movie when I was in grade 12. So I would have been 17.
So you went to an all-girls high school.
I did.
What was the release of The Fault in Our Stars like?
I'm pretty confident. So I think I rented it. I think I bought the book. Like my mum bought it for me. Shout out, mum.
She was like, "Oh, Lucy, you want to read?"
To be fair, in my school years, I was an avid reader. I competed in an event called the Readers' Cup, which we won. Thank you.
Wow.
How
do you win Readers' Cup?
You read the books and then you go do trivia.
A quantity over quality approach. Okay.
No, it's up to your team to decide the approach. You can all agree that you're going to read all the books, or you can basically have everyone decides to read 2 books, one that they're a specialist in and one which is like covering someone else's knowledge base. So then on the night you have each of your 5 people is like an expert in one book. I think there's 5.
It's actually a distinctly Australian thing.
Yeah.
So good job giving that context for our international listeners.
That was so Nerdfighter of me in 2012. But yeah, so I read The Fault in Our Stars, and it was really popular among like my friends and my grade. It was like, even if you weren't an avid reader, if you were going to read one book that year, it would be The Fault in Our Stars. I would say that's like the best way to put it. Because you were like, I didn't know it was this popular. And I was like, I did. It was really big in like my cultural space. And I was on Tumblr, and it was huge on Tumblr as well. Like people were, reblogging like fan art and like talking about the book, because obviously John Green was big on Tumblr, so it was like a 360 online Fault in Our Stars. In my school library, Fault in Our Stars. At my lunch table, we're talking about Fault in Our Stars. So it's big cultural phenomenon. I think,
like naturally for a YA book to cross over into sort of mainstream consciousness, and for me to actually more than 10 years after release, be able to name that book suggests that it was like incredibly popular. But it's just shocking when you see on that John Green biography one of the best-selling authors of all time.
Yeah, up there with To Kill a Mockingbird.
Especially given, spoilers guys, but John is still going to be very active on YouTube and other social media until present, basically.
Yeah.
I think like a pathway we see a lot of YouTubers or like similar creators go through when they achieve sort of mainstream success is that they basically retire from YouTube. I'm thinking Troye Sivan.
Yes.
I'm thinking, can you give me some other people who were influencers and then became mainstream talents?
You don't know Lily Singh, so that doesn't help. I would say Troye Sivan's probably a really good
Yeah, we'll go with
example.
Troy. But it's a thing where
or it's like they show up in a different way online. They're no longer showing up as a creator. They're showing up as like, I'm an artist and it is my job to post on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Troye Sivan, bless his heart, I don't think he's quite reached I never have to work again money, given his success as a musician. But John Green, with the book and the movie adaptation, I think that he would have made... That's the Troye Sivan police coming to get me.
The Troye Sivan police are coming to get you.
I
They
think
say, how dare you speak about our king like that?
Yeah, I think John made like fuck you money, basically.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
the world is his oyster as a result of this, but he very much, it seems, has a natural passion for content creation. And
again, so endearing.
I know, and so like, him and Hank just keep trucking along.
There are quite a few YouTubers which, you know what? Let's go. Even like the Paul brothers, which is a crazy comparison to make, but like, hey, two brothers, you know, maybe a bit of a weak comparison to make, but obviously also two brothers. But they, you know, YouTube was like their bread and butter. Well, actually, they were Vine. They were Viners first, and then we had the Vine invasion, and then they became YouTubers. And that was like their bread and butter. They were doing everyday vlogging. It's everyday bro. And then now they obviously are fully like doing boxing and wrestling, and they have a TV show. They still post on YouTube, but they're not showing up in the same way. Do you know what I mean?
I think what is interesting is that you don't expect this level of like public presence from authors, especially
true.
people that write fiction. Like we're not seeing like Sally Rooney on TikTok.
Suzanne Collins on YouTube. Yeah.
In fact, actually, the example, and we'll go back to J.K. Rowling, of authors who are very public and prolific on social media is quite negative.
Yeah, I think there's sort of two things. It's like we don't expect authors to be like that, but also we expect that anyone with mainstream success, kind of historically, will just be like, okay, cool, I can have YouTube again, like the Paul brothers, like you can use it as a like a promotional tool because you've built it up. It's like it's still there. You have 10 million subscribers. Why not, you know?
Yeah.
Log on every now and then and just be like, hey guys, I'm writing a new book, or like, hey guys, I have an audiobook out, or like whatever, right? Use it as a promotional tool. But he still logs on and just like makes vlogs about stuff that he's interested in.
Yeah.
And he shows up in the exact same way that he did before. Maybe not with quite as much frequency, but I respect it. Again, wholesome points for the Green brothers.
As a footnote on the Fault in Our Stars discussion, we get Charli XCX's Boom Clap as the first single on the soundtrack.
I've heard that performed live. Have you?
No, I have not.
Because one of us went to the Crash tour pre-Brat and one of us didn't. Sorry.
And look, Boom Clap, the music video, get a lot of shots from the film, a lot of shots of
Charli in Amsterdam.
Big hair Charli in 2014.
Slang.
Yeah, like iconic. Do you think John Green has met Charli XCX?
Yes.
Slay.
100%.
Okay. There you go.
I also think, like, again, when we think about all the things, and we'll talk about some of the other endeavors that the Green brothers have done, but did John Green contribute to Brat? Like, is there a domino effect where if John Green didn't put Boom Clap, sign off on the approval of Boom Clap on the Fault in Our Stars soundtrack, which is like the lead single on the soundtrack. Oh yeah, there's a picture of them together. Is it? No, that's Charli XCX with Tyler Oakley, Ed Sheeran, Shailene Woodley, a man, and Ansel Elgort.
Yeah, they did a live concert for Fault in Our Stars.
Wow. Surely John was there.
Yeah, I reckon he was there.
Yeah. But yeah, do you think like John Green sees Brat now and he's like, I did that? Probably not. He doesn't take credit. But do you think Charli XCX? Because, okay, when I went to...
I'm going to stereotype. I think Hank is probably more of a Brat Summer guy than John.
Well, when I went to see the Crash tour and Charli XCX performed, she was like, everyone give it up for Boom Clap. I'm obviously in her accent. She's like, everyone give it up for Miss Boom Clap. People rag on this song a lot, but it gave me my career. It pays for all my bills. Like, because it did. It was like obviously then a massive hit, the song, because of the power of teenage girls.
I think I'm not really aware of that, like Charli fans that are really anti Boom Clap. It's quite different to her later music, but it's a pop bop.
Well, but people are kind of like, oh, it's like your sellout song that you do to, like, you know what I mean? Like it's your mainstream song, but you're actually subversive artist. But she is like, personally is like, I have a special place in her heart for Boom Clap, because it is kind of what obviously she would have been quite financially successful for it, and that would have been what allowed her to make her subsequent albums that were obviously amazing.
So we have John Green, Top of the World, multi-million selling book, movie grossing hundreds of millions at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of spurs a much greater public profile for him. And as a result, there are some very interesting opportunities that him and Hank get over the next few years.
Were you surprised at these?
I was not surprised.
You were like, if it's going to be someone, it's probably going to be them.
Okay, so Hank and John are very vocal about healthcare in the United States, specifically like access to healthcare, and how the US healthcare system obviously is very flawed. And around this time, the Democrats introduced Obamacare with an attempt to like broaden the scope of people covered and access to healthcare and all that stuff. And so when you have Hank Green meeting Obama with other influencers,
pretty swag.
It makes sense because naturally the administration are like, well, we got to meet with YouTubers who are supportive of us. And when you have creators like explicitly making healthcare creative videos that also have like this major non-political audience, because I think that's key. I don't think that they're foremost like political creators. They're
really, I don't know if I agree. A lot of their content, they're not political creators as such, right? But they do talk about politics with somewhat frequency.
But
they talk about the importance of voting.
Sorry. They explicitly say we are about policy, not party.
Okay. But they are the interests that they have and that their community, like Nerdfighters, value is like education, healthcare. These are all things which are like, okay, education itself is like inherently political. It's a political issue, especially in the States. They're talking about the importance of, access to education, which, creates different opportunities for people. Like, I think it's not political in the same way where we've had creators come out and like directly endorse presidential candidates and things like that. Although they don't technically endorse candidates, but I think it's pretty clear that they're not like, yeah, we love Trump. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's really a question who they endorse, whereas maybe some of the other creators we've covered where they talk about political content, you're like, I would assume most creators in those early years are Democrat voters, you would assume. But then there are obviously a few times where they're like, our queen, we have to shout out, friend of the pod, Justine, where she makes those videos where she's like getting her commenters to vote in the comments, and then she reveals that she like actually doesn't vote. Do you know what I mean? Like, Slay. But
I think John Green also said that he didn't vote in certain times of his life.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's why I don't think I would not categorize him as a political creator, to be honest.
But I think they encourage people to like write to their representatives and like to make noise about issues. Like the tuberculosis thing, which is a bit later. That's like only a year or so ago, where he was like, we should be putting pressure on Johnson & Johnson. That's like political.
Yeah. Okay. They're not apolitical.
Right.
But in terms of their genre, this is a sort of a definitional distinction. Yeah. Let's just agree that there's a political element, and thus it makes sense that Hank met Obama, right?
I think when you make content that has any type of like intellectual bend or can be identified as being intellectual, then you are aligned with being somewhat political, because you can't be having discussions about all of these issues like void of politics, right? Or you can at least interpret their political stance based on their opinions on certain topics. Question mark?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I mean, I agree.
For YouTube creators, they are a lot more political than like Smosh.
Oh, 100%.
Yes, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like for a YouTuber, they are, I would say, way more politically adjacent or involved.
Yeah, and broadly we agree with their politics, I think.
Spoiler alert, guys, we're not Trumpies.
Okay, can you just give a brief run through of this businesses they own list? Because I don't know any of these, but you seem more familiar with the spectrum. Because at this point, the Green Brothers, spoilers, they're still very present online, very active, and they have a huge catalogue of places online where they're either involved personally or have some sort of ownership connection.
Yes. So I was aware of, so for me, kind of coming into this as being like broadly aware of the Green Brothers and kind of broadly across the happenings of the Green Brothers, I was like, oh, I know that they've like interviewed Obama and they've like gotten these chances to have these really great moments and be, I guess, like representatives of YouTube in a way to, be interviewing these very important people. But their kind of involvement in, I would just say, like good acts does not end there. So these are all of the businesses or projects that the Green Brothers have. So they have their YouTube channel, Vlogbrothers, but there is also the Hank's channel, which is Hank's personal YouTube channel, which also prolific uploads, and Hank Games. They have the Dear Hank and John podcast, which is a podcast of the two of them, same kind of vibe. They also own Complexly, which is a media company that houses various other YouTube channels. So that includes SciShow, which I believe has over 8 million subscribers, Crash Course, which has like 12 million subscribers, and a bunch more, but they're all like educational channels, and they are also all active and uploading, which is crazy. They own DFTBA, which is a merch company and distribution center. So they make like creator merchandise and help these creators facilitate all that, ship it out. Keats & Co. Coffee, which is their coffee subscription service, which 100% of the profits go to charity. Awesome Socks Club, which is another subscription service where 100% of the profits go to charity. Sunbasin Soap and Eco Geek, a soap company and a like cleaning products company, also under the DFTBA umbrella. All of those profits, I think, also go to charity. Obviously, they owned VidCon, which they have now since sold to Viacom. They own the charity Project for Awesome. And then, of course, we have John's books, which we have talked about. But Hank's books, he's also a New York Times bestselling author. So that is the Green Brothers empire, which I did not know the extent of until this episode. It's crazy. And so many of them are like charity aligned or charity works, which I think is so impressive.
The coffee subscription thing for creators is so
It's just
crazy.
them. It's just them.
No.
It's just their coffee brand.
Sorry, Emma Chamberlain has coffee.
Oh, yeah. We've tried Chamberlain coffee. You didn't like it, but I liked it. But you're like more of like a coffee guy. I like a vanilla latte.
Sorry, I would just Australian coffee, quite different culturally to American coffee. Hence, I would say like the subscriptions, I haven't seen the Green Brothers ones, but it seems like the online coffee subscription stuff in the States is like you essentially get sent like a bag of supermarket coffee, and I wouldn't drink that here.
What I know about their coffee company is that it's ethically sourced and then locally roasted in Missoula, which is where I think one or both of them live. So, yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of YouTubers have a lot of businesses which kind of come off as a bit like scammy or cash grabby, but they have built out quite a business portfolio which are like self-sustaining but also a charitable endeavors, which obviously a lot of YouTubers make these companies and they don't give money to charity. I'm kind of like, I feel like Mr. Beast wishes like Feastable was... Is it fair to pit them against each other? I think...
No.
Really? Because I just think like...
If anything, these guys influenced Mr. Beast, I think, given the size of like his philanthropic efforts.
But I think, and maybe this is wrong of me, but I think there's something charming about the fact that the Green Brothers like don't, like, they obviously talk about it, but it's not, they don't promote it in the same way where they're like, we're really good people. They're just like, they talk about the benefit to the purchaser. Like, they're like, we have this really cool coffee company and it's like ethically sourced and all this good stuff, and the money all goes to charity. It's like, I don't know, I think it's cool.
I will say, tying on that yeah, it is interesting to see how these guys don't play into sort of the content baiting, the sort of attention grabbing, clickbait style video that YouTube is sort of rewarding now. They very much continue to make the same style of content that they have made throughout the history of the channel. But I do have to also say that, as we discussed, at least from John's point of view, the money that he earned from the book and the many now film and TV adaptions of his work, it does to me, like, he has the privilege to not have to rely on YouTube as his primary source of income.
Yes.
Which not many of the creators that we've watched so far have. Actually, I can't really think of anyone.
Yeah, I would say that's true.
So so he doesn't have to engage in these games.
He's financially free.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he can decide to just not do any of that, which, you know, yeah, it does, it makes it easy for you to maintain your integrity. And I don't think, I don't mean to celebrate this in terms of then to turn around to other YouTubers and being like, why aren't you being like that? Because I'm like, well, yeah, you have to still get views to, you know, pay your rent, and that's not a crime. And I don't malign anyone who resorts to Mr. Beast style tactics to, you know, do what they need to do. But I think it's more that I'm like, they could have all of the success and then run a coffee company for like profit, or only give 10% of the profits to charity. But they choose to do, I would say, like a net good, which is very wholesome. They are walking the talk. Do you know what I mean? Like, over the time from their success, their ideals have now been able to become a reality. And I think that's cool. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. They could be like evil millionaires, but they're not really giving that. No. So, yeah. Shout out for not being evil. It's kind of impressive. Where is the Green Brothers crypto coin? Where's the Fault in Our Stars
NFT?
Yeah. Because
maybe it exists. I don't know.
No, but they didn't do any of that.
No,
that
I
we're
don't
aware
think
of. So
they've done any rug pulls.
Shout out to our kings. Turns out you can be a successful creator and not do rug pulls.
Yeah, Green Brothers keep hosting through the NFT craze, through COVID, post sale of VidCon, and I would say the one notable event we should talk about in the 2020s is that Hank reveals that he has Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer, and Hank receives treatment for that, which is obviously visible on the channel because, you know, he has chemotherapy, so he loses his hair. But it seems that he is all good now.
He is cancer-free as of like a couple weeks ago. So congratulations, Hank, if you're watching this. We are very happy for you.
Yeah, so that, I think, covered... He did a very funny video where he did a tier list.
I love this video.
Yeah, the online media's coverage of his cancer diagnosis reveal, and he ranked them according to things like how soon in the article they mentioned John Green, because obviously one of his beefs is just being John Green's brother, and then also like, did they use clickbait, which some of them did, where it was like, Hank Green reveals cancer diagnosis. Sucks. It's bad news, as if he's like gonna die, but like, no, he's obviously cancer free. So
yeah, and he's very optimistic in the video as well. He's very like, yeah, like,
I think he acknowledges, which I said, I was like, well, this is the most survivable form of cancer.
Wow, so, thanks, buddy.
So
everyone would love to hear that from you, but no, but he obviously is like, yeah, like, I'm in really good hands, like, the healthcare system, like, you know, all the doctors and nurses I've been working with have taken great care of me, and, you know, I have optimism that, yeah, obviously Hodgkin's lymphoma is very treatable, and was very treatable because he's currently still cancer free. But I imagine, obviously, still scary. You have a few years before you can kind of rest easy, as we know from our other mainstream cancer king, Jesse Solomon from Summer House.
Shout out my boy Jesse Solomon. What would Jesse Solomon do? Bravo boys unite. Cool. So, I was going to say the Vlogbrothers again, but just Vlogbrothers, John and Hank Green. How are you feeling post this retrospective? You naturally were already aware of the brothers, watched their videos in somewhat. You've read John's books. What are your thoughts?
This was, a lot of the content we watched and the nature of it was very similar to what I was familiar with. Obviously, having read the majority of John Green's books, I was very familiar with his tone of voice, and I think that is very similar to how he speaks in his videos. But I wasn't as familiar with Hank, and I have become quite endeared with Hank, more so than I maybe previously was. But also, I had no idea of the scope of what they have accomplished. Oh, hang on. Sorry, we need to talk about the Lizzie Bennett Diaries. Hank has an Emmy.
I don't know anything about this.
Okay.
So
the Lizzie Bennett Diaries is a web series, but it's an adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. I haven't watched it, but I remember when I was in high school, it was quite popular. We were studying Pride and Prejudice, so people were like, oh, you can also watch the Lizzie Bennett Diaries if you want a different form of taking in the story, or it's like a companion piece, right? As then there's many Pride and Prejudice adaptations, like Bride and Prejudice, which you haven't seen. Banger, the Bollywood version.
No, I
so good.
I have not seen.
Yeah, we'll watch it after this
I've
episode.
actually not seen any Bollywood films, sadly.
Yeah, well, it's technically not. It's not a Bollywood film, but it's anyway, it's not. We'll move on. But the Lizzie Bennett Diaries is, a modern adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, where it's a vlog with Lizzie Bennett, who's doing, it's her POV vlog, but you see vlogs from other people as well, other characters. And it was very successful and won an Emmy.
Cool.
So Hank is closer to the EGOT than John is. So Hank,
fair enough.
Whenever you worry, maybe John is Hank Green's brother.
That is so crazy. So they just did Lonely Girl, but with Pride and Prejudice.
Kind of, but I guess because I knew of the Lizzie Bennett Diaries and I knew it was this big success, but I had no idea that the Green brothers were involved. And so I was like, wait, they did that as well? And I just think the scope of what they've been able to achieve in their 20-something year career online is really impressive. And not just because it's self-serving projects, but projects where they've worked with other creatives and been able to propel them to success. Charli XCX, for example. A direct contribution to her long-term artistic success. So I think
people Charli has to thank for her career in Australia. John Green, KFC, Big Bash.
Yeah, if people don't know, it's KFC, the Australia.
I love it.
I love it. They play that a lot in all the KFC ads.
Oh, Iggy Azalea. Sorry.
Yeah, Iggy Azalea.
Australian legend.
Yeah. Her type, Troy.
Oh, I think Troy probably owes Charli more than vice versa.
I think it's mutually beneficial. But so I guess maybe quite the scope of what they have, of their touch points, or what's the word? Their fingerprints.
Influence.
Yeah, their influence is even VidCon alone. They founded VidCon, which is a huge thing, and then has all this other impact on other creators, and so I just think they're so important to the YouTube space. If we had an alternate timeline without the Green brothers, YouTube would probably look pretty different.
Before I forget,
we might not have Brat.
As we note in most of these episodes so far, Shane Dawson is present in the Green Brothers videos.
Shane Dawson mentioned, he was mentioned.
One of the brothers is like, yeah, that Shane Dawson guy, he is funny. And I was like, well, I can't wait to learn how and why he's funny.
We'll have to do, Shane Dawson must be coming up soon in the episodes. I think I'm putting it off because I just know there's so much to dive into. We'll have to split it up. We can't just do one episode of Shane Dawson.
We'll do it multi-part.
We'll do it multi-part, but
I quite like all the Green Brothers stuff overall.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, I am not going to be a nerd fighter anytime soon. But I don't think that's a really surprise to anyone. But for the like the scope of their work is like so wide, but the quality I think is so consistent, and the brothers themselves are like so well-meaning that I would definitely place them at the top of my prospective YouTube OG ranking.
Tier list.
Not like the top, but in the top section.
Yeah.
And it's also just, it's so impressive that John and now Hank do this on top of being like best-selling authors.
Yeah. For most people, they'd be like, that's my job.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
it.
I don't know if you've met many writers, but I wouldn't describe them as personalities that can hang a YouTube personality channel off, you know?
Well, yeah. They are boy bosses. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, it's just, it's very interesting. I can't really like I can't draw another person who has sort of this personality-based audience and success
Community.
in this like mainstream field of like YA fiction writing. Because like people like Dua Lipa have their newsletter, but you know, like 16 girls are in the Dua Lipa office writing that.
So the only thing I will say is we're not really in this space, but I would say a lot of the kind of current authors who are popular in relation to like book talk, like TikTok popularized authors. So like Emily Henry or Sarah J. Maas, which I'm not super. Guys, I have to admit, I've not kept up my reading habit. I would not be able to win Reader's Cup in 2025. But I think a lot of those authors have success, but I don't even know if they have like a direct connection to their to their community.
Yeah.
Maybe like Jenny Han.
There are a lot of YouTuber books,
Yeah.
but there's not a lot of people that write books that are YouTubers, if you get what I'm saying.
Lindsay Ellis.
I don't really know anything about, sorry.
She's written her third book, I
Okay.
think.
Swag.
But she's not on YouTube anymore. She's on Curiosity
Exactly.
Stream. She's on Curiosity Stream, which is a paywalled
okay.
like.
Is she active?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
she did this-
that's okay. That's another example, maybe.
But I think there is a difference. It's like I would maybe put her, and big Lindsay Ellis fan, have watched basically all of her videos, but like she would maybe be someone where I'd be like, okay, she's now like it's just like an author first and then a creator second.
Sorry, it's reminded me. Is it Brie Larson who we watched her YouTube channel?
Brie Larson, the actress.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
No.
Let me pull it up.
I don't.
I feel like there was yes, it is. She just out of nowhere, you know, Brie Larson, famously Captain Marvel, just launched a YouTube channel a few years ago.
She did?
Yeah, I remember we watched it, and it's still somewhat active.
Oh.
But it's like her doing vlogs, but they're naturally Brie's not editing them.
No.
So I guess it's like when you have any...
Well, Will Smith has a YouTube channel.
Yeah, there's another example.
But no, but I
but
think
the thing
we're
is,
trying to
these
find
guys,
examples.
No. But what I'm trying to say is that this transparently is not an organic channel that Brie Larson has put together. It is the result of many back-end staff, a concerted effort from a publicist to be like, you should be on YouTube. It's a great source of promotion.
Yeah.
So you have like the corporate podcasts in the studio. I can see the big mic on the boom arm.
Yeah.
Whereas like John and Hank Green are still basically doing Vlogbrothers, and John is one of the most popular authors in the world.
Crazy work.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. They don't really have equals or like equivalents or really anyone we can directly draw comparison to.
No,
They're
and
pretty
I think it's
singular
really cool.
in their careers. So
Yeah.
shout out to the Vlogbrothers.
Okay.
Oh, did you have a favorite video?
A favorite video.
Oh, well, you have a favorite video series that you discovered.
Yeah, so John, for around 10 years,
You got so excited
did
about
a
this.
series of Let's Play videos where he just played FIFA and did a like a season simulation, so like offline, single player, featuring AFC Wimbledon, which is the soccer team he supports, based in England. And yeah, as someone who's played a lot of FIFA in my time, and actually one of my first exposures and one of the first communities I followed on YouTube was the FIFA community.
Crazy.
In the early 2010s. I was like, wow, it's really interesting that John made this type of content. And
yeah, there's a lot of it. There's so much.
It seems he plays a lot of FIFA. Yeah.
Yeah.
But single player only, which is so interesting because I've never really enjoyed single player football or sport games because, like, you know, sport in the real world is naturally multiplayer.
Yeah.
So sport in games is more fun multiplayer, but not for John.
No. And he supports, he doesn't just support, it's not just the team he likes. He sponsored this team in the UK.
Wimbledon, I actually think he might be a part owner.
That is crazy.
I believe it's fan owned. Yeah.
And it had like the Nerdfighter emblem on their
Yes.
uniforms. Yeah. That is crazy work. So would that be your like favorite little, like your favorite nugget of Vlogbrothers trivia? Or do you have a favorite video?
Do I have a favorite video? I'd probably say I don't necessarily have a favorite because I do think that because of the style of vlogs broadly, the videos are not as distinctive as, say, like a comedy creator where there's like memorable sketches and stuff because it's mostly these guys talking about what's going on in their present life. So yeah, I wouldn't have an easy pick for my favorite. What about you?
The video where Hank like just humps things in the town.
Okay.
It's pretty comedic.
Yeah.
I think that might also be... No. There's another video where Hank references Gedan, which is this early kind of internet, like YouTube meme that I personally really like. It's a Japanese YouTube video with a woman wearing a horse head. She does a funny dance. And I was like... Yeah, I was a big fan of Gedan, so then Hank was like referencing it, and I was like...
Gedan, as Kylie would say.
No, not at all, but good try. But yeah, I don't know. I like Hank's goofs and gaffs. They're kind of my favourite.
Hank is funny, yeah.
Hank is funny.
Oh, sorry. I know I'm messing with the structure, but it was very funny to see their 2000s tour of Sydney, Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Where we just saw them go around like our park and be like, wow, Sydney. And I was kind of watching it being like, wow, how pretty is Sydney?
And then you're like, oh my gosh, I live
here.
there.
Yeah, wow. So, you know, shout out Sydney, the harbour city.
Sydney.
Cool. Lucy, what are you subscribing to this week?
Ooh. Can you go first? What are you subscribing to this week?
I am subscribing to Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is a confusingly titled turn-based RPG that is on consoles and PC, on Game Pass as well. It's free. I've only started it this weekend, so I'm very early in, but all I can say is it looks and sounds really beautiful, and it has received a lot of praise. It's from like a first-time studio with a lot of ex-Ubisoft developers, and I think I will have more to say in a month's time or so, and I can put some hours into it. But yeah, it is really fun so far.
Everyone will be eagerly awaiting your update and review. We'll come back to that in episode 16.
Oh, okay.
Or 17?
Ambitious. I think it's meant to be like 40 hours long, so we'll see how we go.
Okay. What am I subscribing to?
Yes.
I am going to say, because I've been thinking about them a lot, and I realise I am subscribing to food and snacks quite frequently, but it's just how it is, because I love me a good snack. I am subscribing to the Muji salted cocoa, like cracker biscuits.
Crazy.
They're so good, and you can confirm.
I'm a bit lost, so I haven't been eating them, but I had one. Was that the one you're talking about, or is this a different one?
Okay, a Muji, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Muji. It's like the Japanese, like homewares, and it's like a lifestyle store. They have clothes, home goods, kitchen goods, all that kind of good stuff. But they also have food products, and until we moved to Sydney, we didn't have a Muji near us. We could only go if you like went on a trip to Japan or something, or you went to Sydney or Melbourne. So now they have one in Sydney, and we now live in Sydney, so I can go to Muji pretty much whenever I want, which is nice. But they have started stocking the food like range, which they didn't used to. I'm sounding like a Muji historian. I swear I'm normal. But They have these like little cracker snacks. They're little individually packaged crackers with two little dry crackers with like a cream in the middle. And they have one which is like a vanilla one, with a savory cracker with like a vanilla cream. And then it's the same savory cracker with the chocolate cream. And then they have one which is the salted cocoa cracker, which is like a dark chocolate. It's like an Oreo kind of flavor, but it has like the crunch and like dryness of a cracker, but with the like chocolate cream. And so it's like a salted Oreo. And they're really yummy. And
Crazy.
I got them and they were really good. And then I was like, let me try the other ones. And you tried the other ones and you thought that was pretty yummy. But I don't think it's as yummy as the double chocolate. And I've just been thinking about them and wishing that I'd bought those instead. So
Didn't want to subscribe to the final season of Younger?
No, because it was bad.
Fair enough.
Because it wasn't good. So I didn't want to subscribe. I think I've also mentioned Younger in a previous episode.
You have, yeah.
So didn't want to. Had to give the people something new and fresh. So the Muji salted cocoa.
Yeah, look, if you live in a city big enough to have a Muji, go enjoy the biscuit. If you don't, unfortunately...
You just have to rely on my description.
Yeah. You could just buy a packet of Oreos. I'm sure they're available everywhere.
Comment below. I can send you an envelope of like a single one with the two crackers in there. We can maybe arrange that, potentially. Depends on where you live.
Okay. That is episode 13 of Rewind Time.
Woohoo.
If you follow us on social media, you will have seen that we have started posting shorts from the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not following, chuck us a follow if you want to see that content.
We are on TikTok, Instagram, and obviously if you're here on the YouTube channel, if you're listening to the video pod, then they'll be on shorts as well.
Please feel free to comment either on the short form videos or on this episode itself. Subscribe to our YouTube channell or subscribe to our RSS feed if that's where you get your podcast.
This is so many instructions.
I'm just wrapping up, you know. People, they know the drill.
I would say if there's one thing you can do this week, if you have been enjoying the podcast and you like Rewind Time, then please rate us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That's a great way to help out the podcast and we'd really appreciate it.
I second that instruction.
DFTBA.
Oh, hang on. I know this one.
You can do it. What is it?
Don't forget to be awesome.
Yeah.
I knew this when we did the video, actually. Another credit, I think, for how in sync I am with the Green Brothers.
Yeah. Maybe you're a nerd fighter.
Yeah.
Maybe you are.
Maybe. Anyway, cool. That is episode 13. We will see you next week for another episode of Rewind Time.
Bye.
Ah, oh, that's hot. That's hot.